Educational GMAT. Your partner in your GMAT journey.
Slightly more difficult, I think. You're able to read it, right? Okay. Percentage of population visiting selected cultural institutions in a single year. All right. So how do you interpret this? So the way you interpret this obviously is that in Russia, 15% of the population, obviously Russia's population, right, visits public library. 8% of Russia's population visits zoo or aquarium and so on. All right. For each of the following statements, select would help explain if it would, if true, help explain some of the information in the table. Otherwise, select would not help explain. So again, reiterating guys, this is just one question. And obviously there are 3 sub questions to this question. And reiterating, you would get graded on this question only if you get all the 3 sub questions correct. All right, let's start with the first one. The proportion of the population of Brazil that lives within close proximity to at least one museum. So at least one museum is larger than that of Russia. So we are obviously only concerned with Brazil and Russia here. So the proportion of population of Brazil that lives within close proximity to at least one museum is larger. It's not how many, by the way, it's percentage. Sorry, should or should not? Should not determine. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Where are you from, Bhavya? Delhi. All right. So let's say there is a very good museum in Delhi. All right. I am in Bangalore. Am I more likely to visit that museum or the person who is living in Meerut more likely to visit that museum? What do you think? No, it's not solely. I'm not talking about solely. It's not saying that a person who is in Meerut will definitely visit, and a person who is in Bangalore will definitely not visit. And we are just talking about probabilities, right? Probabilities. I agree. It- ag- Agreed. Obviously, it depends upon the person's interest. It depends upon the person's economic condition. It depends upon the time. It depends upon gender. It depends upon age. I agree. But does the proximity have any role to play? Yeah, it absolutely does. So we cannot discount that. So now notice it says would help explain, right? It does help explain. There is some role of proximity to play. See, we can take it to any, in fact, if there is a museum in Delhi, how likely is a person in Brazil to visit it? Guys, are you convinced? See, this is also not a difficult question, Mr. Sanjeev. All right, okay. So now, yeah.
Move on to the second one. Here we are assuming, I mean, this would help explain or would not help explain will add some new context to the information which is already provided in the question.
Okay. So I wanted to explain that. Now, why are we saying would help explain? Notice there are basically 2 museums here, correct? There are 2 entries in the museum category. In both these categories, a larger percentage of people in Brazil than in Russia visit the museums. So there is a consistency in terms of the pattern. So what we are saying is that proximity, it is a likely reason that perhaps a larger percentage of people in Brazil live closer to a museum than they do in Russia. That's all that we are saying. There is some reason to believe. Let's put it that way. Now, was it Anand who asked the question?
Yes, sir.
Anand, can you please repeat your question?
Yeah, so I was asking here the would help explain or would not help explain kind of questions will add some new information to
Oh,
uh,
yeah, very nice question. Yes. So basically, yes. So would help explain or would not help explain is at least in some ways similar to would strengthen the conclusion or would not strengthen the conclusion that we did as part of critical reasoning. Yes. Right. So this provides evidence. Remember, this is what strengthen the conclusion does, right? It provides evidence that gives us a reason to believe that the conclusion is logical, right? So basically, if this is the evidence that is provided, it gives us a reason to believe that there is a possibility for this conclusion, that this is the reason. Yes, absolutely. Good observation, Anand.
and
All right.
so one more
Go ahead, go
follow-up
ahead.
question. If the
Hmm.
data had been for Natural History Museum, the same data was there, but for Science and Technology, the values were
Yes.
reversed.
Yes. So
Then,
then not help explain. Would not help explain then, obviously.
okay.
Yes. So this is where I said that there is a consistency in pattern right now that for both the museums, this is greater than this. So that's the reason it helps explain. Good. All right. How about this one? Of the countries or political unions in the table, which obviously are these, Russia has the fewest natural history museums per capita. We discussed this term, by the way. What does per capita mean? Per person. Very nice. So total number of history museums divided by the total population of the country, right? So of the countries or political unions in the table, Russia has the fewest natural history museums. So this is what we are talking about. Russia has the fewest. So again, would the data provided help explain this or not help explain this?
Would help explain.
All right, again, would help explain. Sanjeev, are you convinced now? See, because if it basically clearly means that per person there are fewest number of history museums. So clear? Hmm.
Sir, but this is the percentage of population visiting. We don't
This
have
is
the
percentage
population.
of population visiting. Yes. Just
We
one
don't
second.
have the population to decide whether per capita it's the lowest or not.
Sorry, Anand, can you repeat?
I'm not able to get since we have to find per capita the lowest value per capita.
Yes.
How would the table?
Basically, per capita means the availability of museums is less, right? This is what it says. Do you agree? Per person.
Yes, yes.
So if availability of museums is less, then obviously a person is less likely to visit the museums.
Okay,
See,
okay.
it's like this, right? In India, if there is only one museum available, right? Let's take it to the extreme, which means per capita availability of museums is extremely less in India, then obviously it's very unlikely for a person to visit. Yes, Bhavya. We don't need to be aware of population because this is talking about everything is in percentage. So the actual population does not matter. And we are also talking about per capita, which is again the average. So the actual population does not matter anywhere. We are talking about averages and we are talking about percentages. Neither in average. So in both these cases, as I said, the actual population does not matter. All right. Now coming on to
Like
this.
it does matter if you want to negate it, right?
Negate in the sense, Pradhan?
Like for example, let us take Russia has a population of okay, capita means the number of museums per the total number of
Correct.
people.
Correct, correct.
And then
Yes. All right. Okay. All right. Both of these were would help explain. So what do you think should be the answer here?
would not.
So, okay. I mean, this was just a thought. All right. Let's anyway look at this. Of the countries or political unions in the table, the three, okay, that spend the most money to promote their natural history museums. All right. So we are again talking about natural history museums. Promote, yeah, are also those in which science is most highly valid. Now, see again, nothing about spending most money is directly mentioned anywhere. But now again, this is like a general logic question. Spending most money, do you agree that can logically translate to best museums, as in they are kept in a very good shape, and so on, expensive artifacts and so on? Yes. Yeah. All right. So, okay, marketing. Let's say marketing also. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. And that's a good point. Let's say if the marketing for a museum is good, sorry, that, yeah. So it is very likely that more people uh, would visit, right? So which means how can we find out the top three who spend the most money to promote? Most percentage, correct? So again, so you can say that that may not necessarily be the case, agreed, but it's likely to be the case, correct? So then what do we do? We sort this column and find out the top three. Now, which are those top three, friends? South Korea is first, right? South Korea, US, Japan, and European Union. Agreed? Basically, the four of them qualify. Now it's saying, now I think it's easy, are also those in which science is highly valued. Again, same thing. If the population values science, do you agree it's more likely to visit a science museum? Correct? So now what's basically saying is that if there are three top countries in natural history museum, those three countries would also appear in the top in terms of science technology, right? That's what it's saying. So now here, let's look at the top three. First one is US, right? What are you guys saying? No, no, I'm talking about science.
Yeah, US.
US, right? US. Second is China. Notice China does not appear in this list, right? And the third one is obviously European Union. So what will be the answer here? No. And why? Because what the question was expecting was that the top three in terms of natural history museum should also appear in the top three in the science technology museum. That's not happening. China is a new entrant. So it does not help explain.
Oh, so
Yeah, go
one
ahead, go
question.
ahead.
When they say that in that the countries that spend the most money to promote their natural history museums are also those in which science is most highly valued. So doesn't that compare to the percentages in that country as opposed to overall percentages? Sorry, the ranking of
How,
that science and technology museum percentage.
how would that do? But it is always most highly, right? By the way, most is a comparison indicator. So you can't compare only one country and then figure out that it's most highly valued. Most itself is a comparison indicator, Anand.
No, I was confused by the phrase in which science is most highly valued. So, uh,
Yes, in which science is most highly, most, tell me what does it mean, most highly valued?
in
So,
maximum, yeah,
so if I say in India, science is most highly valued, what does it mean? In
um,
comparison to other countries, right?
okay.
Anand, if we say that in India, science is most highly valued, By default, what does it mean? Most highly as in comparison to the other countries. So we can't just look at India only and say that science is most highly valued, right? It has to be in comparison with others. You get it, Anand?
Yeah, I'm.
So that's the reason we have to look at the percentage, by the way. So just for example, okay, let's say in India 10% people yearly visit Science and Technology Museum. In US 20% people visit Science and Technology Museum. So tell me, in which country is science more valued?
US.
Absolutely. So that's exactly what we're saying. So the percentage of people who visit the Science or Technology Museum in a country is obviously an indicator of how valued science and technology is in that particular country, is a proxy for that.
Okay.
Anand, is this clear?
Yeah.
All right. Guys, good questions. Any other question? You had a question, Rabbi? Okay. So all these are valid questions, guys, but then again, reiterating, what are we doing here? For example, in this question, we are saying that the percentage of people who visit Science or Technology Museum is essentially a proxy for how much value do people place in science and technology, right? Similarly, in this case, again, right, what we discussed was that the amount of money that a country expends on promotion is again a proxy for how much percentage of people are likely to visit. Right? So all these are a bit of extrapolation, but I would say that these do make logical sense.